So starting off, this is an active movement. The client will bring their arms towards the ceiling, that is flexion, and then back downwards is back into a neutral position. And now from a neutral position, the client will bring their arm backwards into a extension movement. Now from a neutral position, they will bring their arms in front of them to achieve abduction. This is another active movement, which is horizontal abduction and abduction. If your hands go inwards towards the midline, that's horizontal abduction, and back inwards towards you is horizontal abduction. Then the client will achieve internal and external rotation. This is done by tucking their elbow into their sides, and the client will then be asked to bring their hand away from the midline of their body to achieve external rotation, and then back inwards to achieve internal rotation. I've now covered all of the active movements, so we are now moving on to passive movements. Because it's now passive, I will be taking control over the client's limbs, as I want them to be as relaxed as possible during this passive stage. Starting from neutral position, I will hold their arm and achieve flexion and extension from the shoulder joint. I can then take my client from a neutral position into abduction by lifting their arms up into that area using their shoulder joint. I can then bend his arm 90 degrees to achieve external rotation and then bring it back into neutral to achieve internal rotation. Another passive movement is horizontal abduction and horizontal adduction, as shown in this video. Now, moving on to resistance, I will be carrying out the same movements with resistance added. Firstly, I will take my client through flexion. I'll hold onto their arm whilst they push their arm all the way up to the ceiling, whilst they push against my force until they have achieved flexion. We can now move on to abduction. The client will push the arm up and outwards to achieve abduction, whilst I hold onto their arm with added resistance until they have achieved abduction from the shoulder. After abduction, we will perform adduction. The client will push their arm inwards past their midline in order to achieve this, whilst I add resistance and hold under their elbow. For this next resisted movement, the client will tuck their elbow into their side. I will grab their arm, adding resistance, and they will externally rotate outwards away from their midline. And in order for them to internally rotate, it would be the opposite. So they would push their arm the other way towards their midline. Finally, the test in which is carried out for the shoulder is a press up, in order to check the range of movement within the shoulder joint, which is a ball and socket.